In this video, I'm going to be going over the workouts, diets, and lifestyles of bodybuilders over the past 100 years all the way to now. Starting off with the Bronze Era. The Bronze Era of bodybuilding is generally considered to be from the late 19th century to the early 20th century. This period laid the groundwork for modern bodybuilding, and some key figures included Eugene Sandow, who is often referred to as the father of modern bodybuilding. Others include George Hackenschmidt and Arthur Saxon. The training during this era was more about functional strength and overall fitness. They used basic equipment like barbells, dumbbells, and even homemade weights. However, they did not have access to benches or squat racks as they were not yet invented, and they often lacked a chest and leg development because of this. The primary horizontal pressing movement for their chests were a simple push-up, and the majority of their lifting was often done overhead. There was the hack squat, which is squatting without a rack, which almost looks like a circus feat of strength, and another exercise where it looks like they're kind of standing on their head as a balance to bench press, but that's as close as it got. Diets were quite basic, focusing on natural foods like eggs, meat, and vegetables, and there was less of an emphasis on supplements than there is today. The first major bodybuilding competition was organized by Eugene Sandow in 1901, known as the Great Competition. This contest was won by William L. Murray. The standards by which the Great Competition was judged was by who embodied the closest resemblance to the Greek and ancient Roman statues of the gods. The overall legacy that the Bronze Era left was that it set the stage for the development of bodybuilding as a sport. The focus was on strength, health, and physique, which influenced later eras on everything except for staying natural, which we'll get there. It is just fascinating to see how bodybuilding evolves over time, and if we fast forward throughout weightlifting history to the Silver Era, which is my personal favorite, we can see many classic physiques which were more focused on symmetry, proportion, and aesthetics rather than just sheer size. The Silver Era of bodybuilding is often considered to be from the 1940s to the 1960s. Some of the most famous bodybuilders from this era include Steve Reeves, Reg Park, and John Grimmick. They were known for their well-balanced and aesthetically pleasing physiques. And by this point in time, the squat rack and the bench press had been invented and was skyrocketing in popularity. Many of the training methods during the Silver Era often emphasized the compound movements like squats, deadlifts, and bench presses. They focused on full-body workouts often, rather than isolating muscle groups. The diet was relatively simple compared to today's standards. It included whole foods, high protein intake, and often involved drinking a lot of milk. And at this time, the Mr. America and Mr. Universe contests were some of the most prestigious competitions. Winning these titles was a significant achievement, and all of the competitors were still natural at this point in time. The Silver Era set the foundation for modern bodybuilding and the focus on aesthetics and balanced development, and much like the Bronze Era, they paved the way and still influence much of bodybuilding today. Now we move on to the most well-known era, the Golden Era. The start of the steroid use and the more modern scene of what bodybuilding is becoming, which is a pharmaceutical eating contest and jacking up one's own body for mass and nothing else rather than one of health and beauty. The Golden Era of bodybuilding is typically considered to be from the late 1960s to the early 1980s. This era is iconic for its emphasis on aesthetics, symmetry, and proportion, mainly proportion. The Golden Era produced some of the most famous bodybuilders, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, Franco Columbu, and Frank Zane. These athletes are still celebrated for their impressive physiques and contributions to the sport, and even those who don't keep up with much bodybuilding very hardcore-like will still often recognize names like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Training during this period was intense and focused. Bodybuilders often trained twice a day using a combination of free weights and machines. They emphasized muscle isolation and high-volume training because they were enhanced. Diets were carefully planned with a strong focus on high protein intake, balanced with carbohydrates and fats. Many supplements, like protein powders and amino acids, became more popular during this time. The cultural impact was also much greater during the Golden Era as it helped bring bodybuilding into the mainstream. Movies like Pumping Iron and the rise of fitness magazines contributed to the sport's popularity. The Golden Era is often looked back on with nostalgia for its focus on enhanced yet still classic and oftentimes very aesthetic physiques. And that was the past 100 years of bodybuilding in less than 5 minutes. We went through each era of bodybuilding from bronze to silver to gold and discussed the diets and training methods, as well as goals and lifestyles, feats of strength, and health and beauty. Comment below which era was your favorite and like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And have a blessed day, my friend. Stay natural.